Have you ever heard the term company town? Well, back in the day when corporations would build new factories, they often would build new towns to go with them. Such was the case of Old Hickory outside of Nashville, a town literally built by the DuPont Corporation. Well, Ed Jones gives us a look at the fascinating past and present of this charming Middle Tennessee company town.
Since its founding in 1918, the charming hamlet of Old Hickory has seen generations of Davidson County residents come and go. Its quaint homes and picturesque surroundings stand in stark contrast to the violent conflict which led to its creation. The war to end all wars created a desperate need for gunpowder, which was the specialty of the DuPont Corporation. The U.S. government contracted with DuPont to build the largest gunpowder plant in the world, and a town as well, as Old Hickory historian Chris Brummett explains.
Ground was broken for the gunpowder facility in March of 1918, and this area was barely populated. There were only a handful of farmers who lived here. There was a rush for employment for the gunpowder plant because a lot of people were being deployed, and so they ended up recruiting people from Mexico, from other countries. They brought in people from other states, and by July they produced the first gunpowder. And from that first gunpowder production, they just continued to increase their construction and moving towards full capacity at a rapid pace. Of course, the war ended in November of 1918, which meant there was no longer a need for gunpowder. So the government and DuPont both left Old Hickory. In that 9-month period, there were probably 30,000 to 50,000 people living within the area. And overnight, the population dropped to about 500 people. The area became a ghost town in the following years.
But destiny wasn't finished with Old Hickory. Having constructed a modern factory and housing for 35,000, DuPont would soon return to the village it had created, not to help wage war, but weave wardrobes.
In 1923, DuPont decided to move back to the area and build a rayon factory. Rayon was initially called fiber silk and was used in clothing and other materials. So they returned and they renovated the village and they rented out each house to their employees. So it was basically a company-run town. They owned the houses, they owned the fire department, they owned the police department, they operated the schools, they were in charge of the entertainment. And what you would see with DuPont is that they really fostered the children of their employees. And their reasoning behind this was that they wanted to someday raise these children to become their workers. So they really watched out for their children. And it was a company town until around 1949 through 1952. They started selling off the houses. And of course, many of the employees would buy these houses and continue to live in Old Hickory. DuPont did not want their workers leaving the area, so they tried to provide as much as they could in the way of entertainment, in the way of food, shopping, selling goods and services. They tried to keep it in this area, so they really built up a full-scale town. I began working at DuPont 28 years ago, and I just fell in love with the whole area. And over that time, living here and working here, I just developed a genuine interest in the history.
Chris's interest in that history extended to long-term residents of Old Hickory, and she took it upon herself to record their memories.
Back then, we were just sort of a family because all of our parents worked for DuPont. Once a year, DuPont would have a picnic for all their employees over on the riverbank. And I said, I still remember that. Watermelon and ice cream and everything. At Christmas time, they'd always have a party for the employees. They spoiled us. DuPont spoiled us. They really did.
Oh, I thought I was rich living in these houses from out of the country. Yeah, I thought I was rich because we had a bathroom, we had lights, they had water in the house. All that. We just thought we were rich almost.
DuPont wanted to develop recreation facilities for their employees. So they installed a swimming pool in this area.
We moved here in 1933. The swimming pool was open, and it had showers in the back, wooden showers, and it had free hour.
What was free hour?
We played on the pool, and they knew that people didn't have a lot of money, so we were barefooted, wearing overalls. Like I said, my dad made $12 an hour for 40 hours and had 4 kids. It only cost a nickel to get in, but they had free hour, which means that from a certain hour you could go up there and swim free, but you had to be clean before you went in. And we thought that was the greatest thing in the world.
While Old Hickory continues to attract industries, long gone are its days as a company town. However, it still retains the history and charm of a century ago.
Old Hickory is experiencing a revitalization. People are moving in and renovating houses. We have a lot of people who are really interested in being a part of who we are.